broaden what I do and sort of help more people and businesses in the process.
Yeah, I think it's great because I see what has happened is now you've been published, which is amazing. Because talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, it's so nice to see people actually grow from where you started to where you are now. The business has grown a lot more, but in the same instance, as much as it's growing, other people are growing with you.
Yes, so I'm a contributing author to a book called Saffron, and I think because people started reading the blog and so forth, I was then invited to write a piece for the book. Some people may know it's the second book in a series. The first was called Riding the Samosa Express, which was published, I think, around 2015. And or it could have been earlier even. So this is the second book in that series. And the subject that I wrote about is completely different, though. The idea around the book was to tell very personal and relevant stories about Muslim women and their lives and the things that go through, the things that they experience as women, but also as Muslim women. And it's a
Yeah, and
book.
I think it's a great idea because a lot of people don't understand that the challenges of Muslim women are always not the same as others.
Yes, we deal with things that are so sort of relevant to our culture and our religion, and not everybody in the world understands that. And yes, most women have the same problems and issues, and not to discount that those are very real. But as Muslim women, there's the added pressures of still a very patriarchal society that we live in, and there's still those ideas of a woman's place, and for us to then navigate the modern world and our lives and families and careers and everything within those sort of constraints can be more challenging for than some. So the opportunity and what this book also allowed was it didn't just call on professional authors and known writers and so forth to contribute to this book. um, I'm not a published writer until I contributed to this book, and many of the other writers are also not published authors or are not necessarily professional writers either. But the stories resonate. The stories resonate with all other Muslim women in our community and non-Muslim women for that matter as well. I found it quite extraordinary how personal some of the stories were. It's quite brave that some women shared so much still within our very sort of conservative society.
And that's true. And I think a lot of them have that fear to actually share it because they would
Yes,
like to help others overcome the same challenge or a similar challenge that they've been experiencing and how they overcame it. And they'd like to, of course, inspire others. But there's
absolutely.
that always that element of fear that should I or shouldn't I do it? And I
Mm.
think you've brought that should we say that inspiration to be able to overcome it by writing about it and telling people that you're not the only one that's in that boat. We literally can have a support structure out there.
Absolutely, and I think that's the main thing about sharing our stories, is just so that other people can see that they are not alone, and to help them. When we share a story, when we share a tip, when we share an experience, and a way that we overcame it or dealt with it, it helps the next person to deal with their issue. It helps them to find perspective that they might not have seen before. And I think for me, that's quite important. And it's why I'm willing to share my experiences when I eat out, and share those experiences on Hungry for Halal, or in the book, for instance, where I speak about my experience and difficulties um, trying to start a family, which a lot of women go through but don't want to talk about. But I think it's important that we share in order to serve.
I think that's amazing. How did you actually overcome your challenge? Because I think that's a lot of inspiration for a lot of women out there, like you were saying. They're sitting in this boat where they have this particular challenge, but as you say, some of them don't know where to reach out. And I think your book actually makes it easier to reach out because it's something they can refer and relate back to be able to get some form of inspiration, hope, and of course, advice as such.
Um, I think for me, the inspiration just came from um, wanting to help somebody else, knowing that my story isn't unique, knowing that there are so many other women going through the same issues around infertility and trying to have a family and navigating work and career. And I thought that it needs to be spoken about because we need to overcome the stigma and the shame around this issue as well, around the issue of infertility, especially in our community. And like I said, as for me, it was the idea that I could help somebody else deal
Yeah, and
with
I think
their
it's
issue.
also very traumatizing. It's very stressful. It creates a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of problems in the home itself. So
Yes,
I think there's always a solution and a way to deal with it. And this is what you're doing. Your book is actually bringing some form of light to people to say that there is help out there. Firstly, there is a support structure, but there's also this book that you can look at to give you some form of hope and idea to say there is a way to move forward. You don't have to be stuck in your zone, whichever one it actually is.
absolutely. Nafisa, just to be clear, it's not my book. Um,
Yeah,
it's a
no,
collection.
I'm
Yes,
talking about the aspect
the,
that you wrote about,
yes,
and for
the
me, I
what
think
I
it's a
wrote about.
phenomenal story, your
Yes,
own personal story, and I think
yes,
people, this particular book that each one has contributed to, I think is phenomenal because it's relative stories, it's real stories, and that's what people look for. They want to know. They want to be able to feel at ease knowing that they're not in this alone. There are other people that have experienced similar things, but they can be inspired to actually get over it. And this is what you've done. Your aspect of what you've written has made such a difference, I think, to many women out there to say that I'm not alone and I can go and get help. And I'm probably sure that you wrote about what sort of thing you can actually do to be able to overcome it.
um, I, to be honest, the amount that I was able to write wasn't. I couldn't really get into the nitty gritties of the entire subject, but I think what I did contribute would definitely help some people. Would definitely help them realize that they're not going through those feelings by themselves. Um, that there are so many others that are experiencing the same thing at least, and I think that helps a lot. um, but in terms of sort of finding information and so forth, I don't think they would find that necessarily in the book, but
I think the
definitely knowing
idea
that they're not
is to give
alone.
them the hope. That is it. I think
Yes,
what it is the hope. And I think the hope is the most important thing because a lot
yes,
of the times you find people that I think that's an important factor in life with everything that you come into contact with as such. If somebody just reaches out to you in any way whatsoever and gives you that hope, I think that helps you overcome your hurdle halfway already.
I think so. Yes, I think it's about being able to move forward, because
Yes.
when you feel stuck, when you don't know how to move forward, you can become so stuck, and you can't get out of that. And
Yes.
it's important to read or to find information about how to move forward. It's about knowing that something can be done. It's about doing what you have to do. I think a lot of us become so debilitated by what is holding us back, by what our issues are. it's hard to think that there can be, there is a light at the end. There can be a positive end to this. And I mean, granted, it's not always the case, but it's, that's not the end. You know, you don't have to get stuck there. And I think that's the big thing.
I think the book teaches every single one of us that each one that has written a piece there, it gives us hope and positivity. Let's put it that way, and that's what it stands for. Just
Mm.
literally just hope and positivity. And I think that's the most important thing, is once you have that, you already can overcome any challenge that is, in front of you as such. Also, we want to talk about your food blogging. I mean, I think it's phenomenal. You've reached many heights as far as that goes, and it's important because, as I say, a lot of us go out there. I mean, I also used to travel a lot prior to lockdown, and you go somewhere and you think to yourself, but where can I eat, and what is it that I can and what I can't do? Where can I go? And sometimes you find yourself in a town that you've never been before, and you find yourself in a difficult spot because you don't actually know where to go.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that has been very useful. I mean, that's quite gratifying. Um, and also, you learn more about what's out there. Sometimes we don't venture beyond our own spaces, and we only stick to what we are used to. And if you start seeing that there's options and more out there than what's just in your immediate vicinity, you'd be more prepared to go and check it out. And if you know that somebody else has been there, and that that they actually can say, okay, this is actually good. It's worth the trek out, it's worth the drive out, it's worth and even if you're like going on holiday and you're going to, let's say, if you're in Cape Town or in Joburg, and you're going on a garden route holiday, and you don't know where to find halal food on the garden route or on the road. Some of the stuff that I've covered have been when I've done road trips and places that I've discovered along the way. And um, it's nice that people are now able to sort of know where they can potentially find halal food, so that they don't have to trick with the fridge and the kitchen sink in the car as well.
And I think that's the case. I mean, the minute you start a road trip somewhere, that's the first thing you do, is worry about all the food that you're going to drag along with you.
Exactly.
Whereas you've made it so much easier, because now there's pit stops that you have that you can eat at without having to be concerned.
Yes, and places that you might not have known about, where you can stop for namaz, where you can, where there's masjids on the way, or just, yeah, places of interest or so.
Yeah. What does this mean for you? I mean, you've come a long way from where you started.
Um, it's still very much it's still very young, to be honest with you. The website is very much in a growth phase. Um, we I'm still sort of expanding. I've got so much to cover. During COVID, there was all these restrictions, and we couldn't venture out to eat and so forth. So that influenced a lot of my content. But I think with the industry opening up again now, and there's actually, in spite of lockdown, there were businesses that opened up. There were new businesses that came about. Would you believe it?
Wow.
So there's lots of new things to discover now as well. So I'm quite looking forward to discovering all these new places. And then in terms of the business itself, also, I'm hoping that I'll be able to grow the business and take on people that will write for me, and be able to cover more ground and do more to empower the halal businesses in our space, and bring more focus to them.
Well, I think that's amazing. And as I said, you've come a long way because I mean, from where you started off with being, doing graphic designing, and then of course, writing about stuff, and then food blogging. It's nice to see how your journey has spanned out and what sort of successes you've had in the interim. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal because I see you still have a lot of things that you see forward going forward that you would like to, of course, encourage people to get involved with as such.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much.
Uh,
I really just for me, as long as the website is a help for people and a benefit, then my work is done.
yeah, no. What message do you have for all our viewers out there today?
Sorry, I didn't get that. The line seems to be very bad now.
Yes, the line seems to be very bad. If you can hear me, what message do you have for our viewers today? Okay, that was Sister Dilshaad Parker discussing her blogging journey. We seem to have lost her there somewhere along the line, but definitely a very inspirational woman, teaching us about the different places that you can actually go and visit. A lot of the times when we're traveling, we don't know where the nearest masjid or the nearest halal place is. It's very difficult to find those food places. She's actually enlightened us with it, made our life easier, something to definitely follow. An inspirational woman wanting to, of course, empower others. Wrote a little piece about her challenges, and I'm hoping that's going to entice other women to have overcome their challenges by reading her piece and getting yourself into a different space, because there's always that hope and there's always that help out there. And if she's still listening to us, we want to actually thank her for taking that time to come out today and discuss this phenomenal work that she's doing. And I mean, a lot of the times this is something that we take for granted, that when we travel on the road, we will find a place. But she's definitely made our lives easier by shedding light on that. So Sister Dilshaad, we'd like to thank you so much from the Salam Media team for joining us. You've definitely been a real inspiration this afternoon. And we're going to go for a quick break. Stay with us because we're going to talk about wholesome eating after this break.